There are some strange connections between Eyes Wide Shut and the film Lord of Illusions by Clive Barker, and today we're going to take a look. Hey, hello, and welcome to my channel. And as you can see from the title, today I'm doing something a little different. Since next week is Halloween, I decided to take a look at one of my favorite creepy movies called Lord of Illusions, written and directed by Clive Barker, who is also well known for his supernatural horror stories and films, such as Hellraiser, which I also like quite a lot. But I've noticed some strange connections between Eyes Wide Shut and the film Lord of Illusions. So let's take a look. Now, before we get into some of those strange connections, let me very briefly tell you what Lord of Illusions is about. We start in the Mojave Desert, where we meet a man named Nyx, who basically has a group of disciples with him in the desert, his cult members, more or less. And Nyx has started calling himself the Puritan. Just then, former cult members Swann and Quaid show up to confront Nyx. There is all types of bizarre stuff going on, and when they get the upper hand, they perform what they call a binding on him by trapping him in an iron mask. Supposedly, he cannot use his powers. Of course, there is already a similarity to Eyes Wide Shut, since our main characters of Red Cloak and Dr. Bill both wear masks. And of course, Red Cloak also seems to have a cult around him, just like Nyx does. We then head to Los Angeles, 13 years later, and meet Private Detective Harry Damour working on a case. When he enters a fortune teller, he finds Quaid, who's been attacked, and who then reads Damour's palm and says he is walking the line between heaven and hell, and also that the Puritan is coming. Damour then turns over the Ten of Swords tarot card, which can mean painful endings and betrayal, but also the darkest hour before the dawn. So there is hope. And how does this relate to Eyes Wide Shut? Well, I've often thought, and many in my comments section have pointed out, that the character of Red Cloak has some similarities to a tarot card called the Hierophant, which you see here. And not just because the figure in this card is wearing a red robe and sitting on a throne and has two attendants on either side, as does Red Cloak, but because the Hierophant is an esoteric figure who can symbolize sacred things and the hierarchical order, and can also be a teacher to those who seek knowledge. When we meet up with Swann again, that's the man who put the mask on Nyx, he's now a famous magician. Could he be the Lord of Illusions of the film title? And Damour is hired by Swann and his wife to sort of protect Swann, since he is afraid that cult will come after him. We then join Swann as he's headlining a theater to perform that night. And apparently, Swann is actually able to levitate himself. Is Swann performing real magic or just an illusion? His new illusion involves him escaping from a wheel because above him are a number of swords that will drop down. But something goes wrong. The sword pierces Swann and he dies. Although this is just an illusion, Swann is still alive. But notice the swords, like our tarot card, the Ten of Swords, or painful endings. But this was just a show put on to convince the cult that Swann died during the performance. And I've often felt that a lot of what happens at the mansion is a show put on for Dr. Bill. Now, one of the more interesting scenes takes us to a spot called the Magic Castle, sort of a hangout for magicians. And while he's there, Damour sits down with some of the other magicians. Damour eventually finds out that Nix may have been the one that taught Swann. Later at the Magic Castle, Damour finds some old files and papers, apparently all about Nix, including this old photo which has Nix looking like Brando in Apocalypse Now. And they find several illustrations showing the sort of tricks, quote unquote, that Nix could perform. Except, what if it wasn't a trick? Swann's wife says that Nix could levitate and get into people's heads. In other words, that Nix could perform real magic. And I've said many times that I think there are several examples in Eyes Wide Shut in which Red Cloak seems to perform actual magic. Though I know that's controversial, but he seems to turn plain masks into elaborate ones. As I proved in my video, Eyes Wide Shut, Masks Change at the Mansion Party, which I'll link in the description box below. As Nix's cult has reformed, we get to the most intense part of the film because they've found his body and the cult want to resurrect Nix. As the cults are being weird and slicing their hair off, in the other room, a resurrection is about to happen. And as it starts, amazingly, we even get to see what the inside of Nix's head looks like as he is coming back to life. And as the mask comes off, Nix actually comes back to life. And he has a final showdown with Swann, where eventually Nix is thrown down to the bottom of a pit, which is apparently a lava pit. It's quite catastrophic, but I've always thought that Nix's tone in this film, that's somewhat noble, but commanding and a bit unhinged, is similar to the tone of Red Cloak at the mansion party. And another way, I think, of looking at both of these characters, Nix and Red Cloak, is that they both give the appearance of very high level magicians. Just look at Red Cloak in his throne with his red robes and his attendants, looking very much like the Hierophant tarot card. He seems to preside over some strange rituals at this party, and I believe some of the strange changes we see with the masks here is Red Cloak showing his power. Now, Nix seems to be able to control fire, and he also seems to control a very loyal cult. And Swann's wife said that Nix can actually levitate. If that weren't proof enough that Nix can perform real magic, we actually see him resurrected and literally come back from the dead. So the idea of real magic is something that is shown here. These aren't just tricks. These are powerful, high-level magicians. Now, one of the themes I see running through Lord of Illusions as well as Eyes Wide Shut is that of a searcher. In Eyes Wide Shut, that searcher is Dr. Bill, who ends up at the mansion party, maybe searching for a wild time at first, but finding much more there, as he seems to become an unwitting initiate into Red Cloak's cult. And in Lord of Illusions, the searcher could be Harry Damour, our private detective, in the best noir sense, who's searching for the truth about the almost mythical powers of the cult leader Nix, and finds an otherworldly spectacle, though he doesn't ever join the cult. But our magician Swann is also a searcher for esoteric truth and the keys to perform real magic. But Swann actually was a member of the cult. So people who are searching for something in the esoteric sense is a theme here. So, to sum up, today we looked at some of those connections between Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions and Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. Now, in both of these films, there is a cult. Nyx's cult in the Mojave Desert, and of course, Red Cloak's cult in the mansion. We also see a tarot reference, here with the Ten of Swords, foreshadowing Swann's performance on stage. And in Eyes Wide Shut, Red Cloak looks strangely similar to the Hierophant tarot card. We also see what appears to be real magic from the magician Swann, as well as his mentor Nyx. And I think real magic is a major theme in Eyes Wide Shut, though not everyone will agree. But I have spoken about this in other videos too. One of the main reasons I love Lord of Illusions, and also one of the main reasons I see a connection to Eyes Wide Shut, is the fact that both of these films feature, in a serious tone, characters that appear to actually be extremely powerful, high level magicians. Well, that's my new video about the connections between Eyes Wide Shut and Lord of Illusions. I hope you liked it. Now, next week is actually Halloween, so I won't be here, as I always visit my family and carve a pumpkin on Halloween. But the week after that, I will be back with another video. Also, a big thank you to my awesome comment section, who always have something interesting to say. And it would help my channel if you did hit that subscribe button and liked the video. But either way, my name is Shim. Thank you for spending time with me, and happy Halloween!
Jesus. What the hell is going on in there?
At a guess, they just resurrected him.